Instead, you can save the hassle of buying individual stocks or manage your risk in investing in individual stocks. Okay, for example, in the slides, you can see that, in order to closely the index performance, basically passive investing means that ETF usually buy and hold the securities that comprise the index constituents based on the respective weights in the index. So you can see the upper part of the pie chart. Example, like index constituent, they have like 30%. Those are, for example, like 30%. Example saja, 30% exposure in banking stocks, for example. So the passive strategy of ETF, basically, they also expose 30% in banking stocks. So they follow the index. Okay, so that is called passive investing and aim to track the index performance versus the active strategy, basically like unit trust. For example, like the 30 stocks, I can see the below part of the pie chart. So the 30 stocks is basically the exposure to banking stocks, for example. So let's say during that time, the banking stocks actually do not perform very well. So the active strategy is that, I need to reduce my exposure in banking stocks and increase in other sectors. Yeah, just because you need to outperform the index during that point of time. So that's the differences between passive strategy and also active strategy with regard to ETF versus unit trust. Okay, and the last one, if I may, the differences between unit trust, ETF, and also basically the stocks actually almost the same with ETF. So with regard to the product features, for example, unit trust is not listed, ETF is actually listed on the exchange. Diversification, both have actually diversification of stocks because they are actually with exposures of different underlying. Yeah, it can be like I mentioned earlier, stocks, bonds, commodities, for example. Like stocks, no diversification. If you invest in the individual stocks, which means that you invest in that stock, but not in other stocks. And in terms of the investment strategy, unit trust is actively managed, which I explained earlier, and ETF is passively managed. Yeah, so aims to track the index performance. Okay, and management fee, basically unit trust is actually typically higher. Okay, the reason being because active strategy, so they really need to manage the fund, whereas ETF is slightly lower. It's normally below 1%. Because it means actually to track the index. Okay, and the sales charge, no sales charge for ETF, but of course, if you need to invest in the stock market, you need to pay for the brokerage fee. Yeah, and investing in unit trust, there's sales charge because who actually selling the unit trust to you is actually unit trust managers, right, or unit trust consultant. So there's a sales charge that you need to pay the unit trust consultant. Okay, the traded price, basically unit trust actually once a day NAV, so there's only one price, but ETF actually according to the volatility of the price or the ETF. Yeah, so you can see different pricing throughout the trading day. Distributors, basically unit trust, you have agents out there. For example, you know there are certain agents that have like thousands of agents for one fund, for example. Then ETF, basically you need to go to stockbrokers to buy ETF similar to stocks.
Okay, thank you so much, Puan Nani, for giving us a good overview of what actually ETF is and how is it different from unit trust and also a stock. So as I understand, if a person would like to trade in the stock market, he or she would probably need to do a lot of research, read many annual reports, and even calculate some ratio analysis and things like that, which may be a bit complicated to people who are just starting their investment. So why do we actually say that ETF is a good starting point for beginners?
Okay, ETF generally memang sesuai actually for the new beginners or pelabur baru. So pelabur actually boleh melabur tanpa perlu mengawasi pelaburan dia setiap hari atau setiap minggu. Yeah. Because ETF is actually normally for long term, and ETF have all the advantages of a unit trust fund. Okay, and usually better. For example, like it is what do you call it, ease of transaction. Okay, so which means that ETF trades just like a stock. So it can be bought and sold through your broker with continuous pricing throughout the trading hours. Yeah, so you can trade on daily basis. Okay, it's transparent. So the holdings of ETFs is actually updated daily and it's available on Bursa website. So kalau you nak tengok, for example, ETF ni invest in what stocks. So you can take a look at Bursa website and see the holdings of the ETFs. So it's very, very transparent and it is regulated. So it's actually listed on Bursa with strictly regulated, and we have our authority, Securities Commission Malaysia. They also monitor the conduct of the trading. Okay, diversification. So you know the saying that don't put your all eggs in one basket. So with ETF, a single trade offers you instant diversification. Okay, so with exposure to a portfolio of securities, beli satu you dapat macam-macam. Okay, and another one is of access. So if you want to invest in foreign markets, bonds, you're not sure how. Foreign markets, then you have accounts and all that, whether you can actually invest outside, whether you have the capability and also to be able to trade outside the country. But actually investing in ETF with exposure in China shares, for example. So technically you are investing in China shares, but through ETF listed on Bursa Malaysia. Same goes like equate US 50. You are actually investing in 50 US stocks, which are Sharia compliant some more, okay? But you actually only actually invest in Bursa Malaysia locally. So you don't have to go outside. So that is called ease of access. And again, it is affordable. So ETF hanya memerlukan modal yang rendah. So it's good for the pelabur or investors that looking for a stable investment with consistent dividend and minimal risk. Okay, so you can start investing as little as 100 units or maybe 100 ringgit. So you would like, but if you invest in single stock, for example, you will incur much higher cost. So maybe the stock's price is actually beyond 1 ringgit, 5 ringgit, for example. So you need more money to invest in one stock. You cannot invest in many stocks because you need more money, technically. Okay. So then again, ETF currently stamp duty is exempted until 31st of December 2025. So those who are invest in ETF, so you can just pay your brokerage fee. So there's no stamp duty involved for the buying or selling the ETF for the time being. So the next one is basically, I just want to highlight about the things that you should know as a beginner about investing in ETF. So when it comes to investment, everybody will ask about investment returns. Yeah, that's for sure, right? So investment returns for ETF comes in the form of dividends and also the capital appreciation. Okay, capital appreciation, which means that the price of the ETFs actually goes up, then you have capital appreciation from that. So and also all investment have risk. So you need to be mindful of that. All investment carry risk, and be aware that returns are not guaranteed. So same goes for ETF. And the last one, the past performance is not is a future performance. So the historical performance doesn't actually dictate what the future performance are in ETF. Okay, if you may, I just want to give an example of using ETF for long-term portfolio. Okay, this is what you mentioned about. Okay, kalau if you start investing, should I invest like one-off or regularly? Okay, I take example, S&P, Standard & Poor's 500 Index versus Equate US 50 ETF. Okay, so you can see that ETF, one is actually based on the, the data as of 28 February 2025, is actually outperformed S&P 500 Index. Okay, so that's the performance of Equate itself, Equate US 50 ETF. But when it comes to investing, so you can choose, like for example, like method one, you just dump 1,000 ringgit. So after 7 years, the money only grows about 2,970. But okay, let's say you invest 100 ringgit, okay, on monthly basis. After 7 years, actually you get 16,466. Okay, so this is a simulation that we did. So again, the more money you put, the more money you get. So that's actually common, right? Okay, so basically that's the importance of putting money or setting aside your money on monthly basis for investment. Same goes with the next slide. Say the simulation on the S&P 500 index versus gold ETF. So gold ETF, basically the underlying is actually gold. Yeah, it's a gold commodity. So again, gold ETF actually outperformed S&P 500 as of 28 February 2025. So again, when you invest through three methods, you dump your money, 1,000 ringgit. So the investment value after 7 years is about how much? It's 2,284 ringgit. So method 2, you put 100 ringgit. So how much you get after 7 years? It's 14,313, which is a lot more. If you put more money, if you put 300, then it becomes 42,939. So that's why actually investing, you need to put aside on a monthly basis. So you have to have a regular habit of putting aside your money for investment.
Okay, thank you so much, Puan Nani, for sharing all your insights with us. So if I hear you correctly, ETF is actually a good start for beginners who are in investing because it is easier to transact, and it's also a good way to diversify a beginner's investment amount, and it's also affordable. Not like for stock, the minimum purchase is 1 lot, but for ETF, the purchase price may or may not be lower than a stock value. Okay, so next, I think what would interest the beginners more is also actually how many types of ETFs are there in BURSA Malaysia?
Okay, currently there are 17 ETFs listed on the exchange. Out of that 17 ETFs, there are 7 Sharia compliant ETFs. Yeah? So those are actually looking for Sharia compliant investment. So they can consider these 7 Islamic ETFs. And we have about 6 ETFs issuers at the moment. Aham Asset Management. We have M Funds. We have Equate Capital. We have Kenanga Investors, M&A Value Partners, and also Principal Asset Management. Those are these ETF issuers, or we also call them as fund managers. And market makers, basically, they are actually to ensure the liquidity in the market. Okay, because that is very important. And also we have 5 research houses that provide research coverage for all of our 17 ETFs. Okay, the next slide, basically, I just want to show you based on geographical. Okay, so we have out of that 17, 1 is actually with exposure in US stocks. So this is actually Equate US 50 stocks. Okay, commodity, we just have 1. We have Sharia compliant gold ETF. Okay, and those with S, actually category S, those are the Sharia compliant ones. So Asia Pac and foreign with exposure in countries in Asia Pacific. So we have various over there, including China. And also with the Malaysian stocks, there are bond funds. We have Equate, Dow Jones Islamic Titan 25, Wakaf ETF, which I will actually explain later, and also Equate, MSCI, Malaysia Islamic Dividend, and few others. Okay, and just to highlight, to give some highlights on 2024. 2024 was a very good year for Bursa listed ETF, basically. So we have a notable achievements. For example, like the overall ETF's ADV, average daily trading value, actually increased by 45% as compared to the previous year. So for Sharia compliant ETFs, it actually increased by 46% as compared to the previous year. And we have actually increased in the number of ETF investors, retail investors, by 135%. That's a very huge jump. And there were about 80 research reports on ETFs last year. And again, I should mention about the launch of E-Trade on Touch and Go. This is Bursa's collaboration with Afin Huang and also Touch and Go. This is actually to encourage more retail public actually to come and invest in the stock market through a better or actually simpler way by actually just you need to have your phone, your smartphone, and go into the Touch and Go app and go to E-Trade to invest. Okay, and we have one new ETF listing last year, which is actually the Wakaf ETF, which I will explain later. So on the next slide, it's just like just to tell you some of the Sharia compliant ETF for those who are looking for Sharia compliant investment. So we have 7, and the last one we just saw the listing of Wakaf ETF, Wakaf featured ETF, equate Wakaf ETF in December last year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Puan Nani, once again. So, earlier you mentioned that for ETF, it is actually tracking a particular index, and if investors are interested to trade a particular sector of stocks, they may consider going into ETF, right?
Yeah.
But your earlier slides, you introduced something new to us, which is Wakaf ETF. So can you explain a bit more what actually is Wakaf featured ETF? How does it really work?
Okay. I should start by actually mention to you, you should understand what is Wakaf, okay? So Wakaf is actually a form of charitable endowment, okay? It's a form of charity, sedekah, okay? In which property or assets, it can be movable or immovable. So movable is something like cash, vehicles, immovable like land, buildings, yeah? So they are donated for the use and for the benefit of the public, okay? So the benefit of public is not only Muslim, but also for the non-Muslim, okay? And Wakaf is intended to be perpetual, berpanjangan, okay? So the assets are normally held in trust, and only the income generated from the Wakaf assets is used for the charitable purposes or the social impact activities or initiatives. For example, what it means by income generated for Wakaf assets. Let's say, Yuning, today, you actually put 1,000 ringgit, you give Wakaf 1,000 ringgit. Because Wakaf can be actually Wakaf by Muslim or non-Muslim, unlike Zakat, yeah, which I will explain later. So Wakaf, basically, you put 1,000, you give cash as Wakaf, for example. So that your 1,000 ringgit is not immediately distributed to the needy. It's not immediately distributed for the purpose of the beneficiaries or the benefits, which means like to build a building. So the one that holds trust of the, an institution, Wakaf institution, will hold your money as trust, okay? So they invest your money. So the income from that investment, only they use for the beneficiaries or the benefits of the Wakaf, which means that the income from the investment we use to build masjid or to build community building, to build hospital, healthcare facilities, for example. Okay, so that's what it means by assets are held in trust and income generated for the Wakaf assets only will be used for general or social impact initiatives. And the next one, I just need to explain further what's the difference between zakat, sadaqah, and also wakaf. Okay, so zakat basically is for Muslim. Only Muslim can do zakat, not for non-Muslim, because as a Muslim, we need to share what we have as the access, for example. So it can be like normally, and it's actually compulsory, obligatory, which means that it's a must for Muslim to spare some money for zakat. So this is where we have money, for example, like it can be your salary on monthly basis. So you put aside your money from your salary that you receive actually for zakat. Then again, you have gold, lots of gold, you keep gold. You also need to pay zakat. Yeah. Or what else? You have shares, for example, so you need to pay zakat. So it's a must for us to share our wealth. And also, who benefits from this zakat is Muslim, the poor, and also the needy people. Yeah, we call it asnaf. Okay. So sadaqah is actually, the next one is sadaqah. It's a voluntary charity. So everyone can do charity. You also can do charity. I also can do charity. It's optional. Okay. So it can be done by Muslim and non-Muslim. It's the general public. Okay. So it's a voluntary act that involves giving or donating. Okay. So you donate immediately. It's actually for the use of at that moment. For example, you sedekah, you give because people need to use, tak ada duit nak makan. So you give sedekah. Okay. Or they need sedekah to build a mosque, for example. So I just donate my money for the masjid. Okay. And I need actually for example, like charity. Okay. It is very for that moment in time. Okay. It's not for the for the purpose of longer use. So this is where Wakaf comes in. So Wakaf is actually charitable endowment, and in Muslim we call it Sadaqah Jariyah. Have you heard of this? Three things when we die, yeah. Tiga benda bila kita meninggal for Muslims. One is actually doa anak-anak yang soleh. Okay, that's number one. So that is after we die. Number two is actually ilmu yang diberkati, maksud ilmu yang diguna pakaikan. Example that kita mengajar orang, then people always use our ilmu untuk selagi ilmu tu digunakan, it will be benefit to us. The third one is sadaqah jariyah. So sadaqah jariyah is actually, wakaf is a part of sadaqah jariyah. Why? It is actually berpanjangan. Remember I mentioned about perpetual. So the what do you call that? Selagi assets tu, for example, like we actually donate as wakaf. So somebody held the what do you call that? Our money held in trust. So the income generated from that wakaf assets, so we contribute, for example, to build healthcare facilities, for example. So selagi health facility is in place, even though after we die, after the donor's passing, we still receive the benefits, the pahala. Okay. So the good thing about wakaf is that anybody can wakaf, be Muslim or non-Muslim, similar to sadaqah. Okay. But wakaf is basically the good one for Muslim because of is for hereafter, and also the use of the wakaf basically for longer term, and it can be benefited by Muslim and non-Muslim. For example, healthcare. Who use the healthcare facilities? Everyone, yeah, not only for Muslim. Unlike zakat is actually meant for Muslim, so anybody can do wakaf. So it's not meant only for Muslim. So that's a good thing. And I think there's the last part I want to highlight about wakaf, just a bit overview. There are two types of wakaf. One is actually family wakaf. The second one is wakaf of virtue. Wakaf of virtue is basically for donation lah. So it's a general wakaf. General wakaf means that there's no condition by the donor. So yeah, I give you money, you can do anything with my money. Yeah. And the special wakaf, which means that for specific purpose. So you wakaf to build healthcare facilities. You contribute wakaf for the purpose of the what do you call it, mobile clinic, for example. Yeah. So there are pillars and conditions of wakaf. So there's a wakaf donor. We are the donor. Wakaf asset, the money, it can be movable or immovable. Okay, wakaf beneficiaries who will receive or benefit the wakaf, and also declaration of wakaf, which is actually our niyat, our intention. Okay. So that's it about wakaf, the introduction about wakaf.
Okay, thank you, Puan Nani. So we heard that for wakaf featured ETF, apart from investing for growing your own wealth, we are actually also contributing to the betterment of our society by creating positive impact to our community. So just on that point, since you mentioned that part of the profit of the investment in wakaf ETF will go into charity, does it mean that our capital will still continue to stay invested?
Okay. So this is a special thing about wakaf featured ETF. Yeah. So it's a Sharia compliant ETF is one, but it is with wakaf feature, which means that it's a listed fund, but with the concept of endowment. Endowment and also investment. Okay. So it enables investors to donate a portion of their income distribution for their investment in ETF for wakaf purpose. For example, today I invest 1,000 ringgit in Equate Wakaf ETF. Okay, so when it comes to income distribution, it's already mentioned in this prospectus. It says that 50% of my income will go to Wakaf, and I will receive another 50% as my returns. So that's a good thing. You invest in 1,000 ringgit. At the end of the day, you receive 10% lah. Say example 10%. Then receive 100 ringgit as your income distribution. 50 ringgit will go to Wakaf, so you're donating. So another 50 ringgit is yours. Your 1,000 ringgit investment remains there. It will not touch. So until actually you withdraw or you sell ETF. Okay, so that's why I said this actually is there. Your money will not go anywhere. You are not actually donating your 1,000 ringgit. You are donating only the income, a portion of your income distribution. Okay, so I'm just going to show you, just for you to understand a typical structure of ETF with Wakaf feature. Okay, so basically an issuer or a manager, ETF issuer or ETF manager, they will issue a Wakaf featured ETF. In this example, is Equate Wakaf ETF. And before that, they already have arrangement with Wakaf institution. So this Wakaf institution basically a Majlis Agama or institutions approved by Majlis Agama Islam Negeri. Okay, so the arrangement basically it was stated in the prospectus of the ETF. So where your money will go in terms of who are the beneficiaries of the Wakaf or the Wakaf projects that you actually going to contribute to. So it can be for social, it can be for education, sustainability initiatives, or it can be anything, community building. So it is very, very general. Yeah, it's not only for building mosques, for example. Okay, so this Wakaf feature ETF will be listed and traded on the exchange. So as investors, I will come in and buy ETF. I used the example of buying 1,000 ringgit earlier. So I buy worth 1,000 ringgit of ETF. So at the end of the day, when it comes to income distribution, so you can see that another 50% of your income distribution will go to Wakaf, then you will receive your balance 50%. Yeah. So you're investing at the same time actually donating and creating impact for the community, and also it's actually for the socio development.
Okay, so from what I hear, the Wakaf feature ETF really is something very meaningful for investors to consider as well. So just to confirm, Puan Nani, so we don't have to be Muslim to invest in the Wakaf ETF, right? Okay, so probably could you also explain a bit more what are the causes that Wakaf ETF actually support?
Okay, basically, the Wakaf actually supports your contribution is quite general. Okay, it can be for education, healthcare, social infrastructure, the economy. For example, you help the SME entrepreneurs, for example, and also for humanity. Okay, so it's for everyone. Okay, anyone can benefit. Like earlier, you don't have to be a Muslim to what do you call that, to Wakaf, or even actually to invest in this type of Wakaf featured ETF. And the benefits is basically you support the development of Wakaf. It's a charity with lasting impact because of you're not just giving money for people to eat, but we're developing a building, for example. And then actually it improves our socio-economic, the well-being, helping the poor and also the needy as well indirectly. Okay, it's actually foster harmony among the communities. Actually, we share what we have, right? And also it's actually part of the poverty alleviation, and also it's actually and it's good because of when Wakaf is something like Wakaf featured ETF is listed on the exchange. You have the prospectus. Everything is actually disclosed on BURSA Malaysia. There's announcement, what do you call it? When it comes to income distribution, there's announcement on the website. So it is very transparent Wakaf administration. So it's very, very good. And another one I mentioned, how if you want actually to start investing in Wakaf, first, the same. It is an ETF. Okay, all you need is just to call your registered stockbroker. For example, like today, we have E-Trade. So you can start investing in Wakaf ETF using E-Trade. Yeah. So the moment you are in E-Trade, actually you are connected to Afin Huang Investment as a stockbroker. So as a stockbroker, you can choose to have an Islamic trading account or a conventional trading account. What's the difference between Islamic trading account versus conventional trading account? With Islamic trading account, basically you can invest only in Sharia compliant stocks or securities. With conventional, you can invest in both. Okay, so that's the good thing about having the what do you call that, the flexibility. So you can start investing in Wakaf ETF with CDS and trading account, and you enjoy your investment returns while also donating for the community. Okay. And there's one that I need to mention, which is actually there's a tax incentive if you invest in this Wakaf ETF, because technically you are actually contributing for the Wakaf. So investors are eligible for income tax deduction under subsection 4411C and or subsection 4411D Income Tax Act. So if you actually go for income tax declaration, so there's a portion there where this is put together with a charity, Wakaf is together, so you can actually disclose how much money actually in a year that you contribute for Wakaf. So you can get tax deduction on that. Okay, there was one thing that I want to highlight. Now this is a good time for you to invest Wakaf ETF because there's a campaign that's running, which began on the 5th of May recently, and it's actually running up to 29th of August. Okay, so it is called Jom Wakaf ETF. All you need to do is actually, if you already have trading account, you can start investing and participating immediately. And that you stand a chance to win prizes worth up 25,000 and also 500 units of US 50 ETF. So the more you trade, the better the chances to win and the greater your contribution for Wakaf and the community.
Okay, thanks Puan Nani so much for your sharing. They are really informative for all of us, and this really sounds something interesting. But let's also get into something more practical, right? So if I am interested to start investing in ETF, whether or not it's normal ETF or the Wakaf ETF, how can a beginner get started? Like, do I also need a lot of money to get started?
No, actually you may start small and learn as you go. So you don't need thousands of ringgit to begin. So you may start investing in a simple, well-diversified ETF with 100 ringgit to 500 ringgit. And this is enough to take the first step. Okay, and I just wanted to highlight, for example, Touch and Go. Okay, is a good place. E-Trade is a good place. It's a collaboration between BURSA, Afin Huang, and also Touch and Go. Okay, it was launched last year, 1st October last year. It's a good opportunity for those who have not actually invested, and for those who have not already invested, but want to open account through E-Trade. So you can actually a simpler way of investing just through your smartphone and also a Touch and Go app. So you can actually just launch your Touch and Go e-wallet app. Okay, tap Grow Your Money from the home screen. Tap on E-Trade to begin investing. So as easy as that.
Right, thank you so much Puan Nani for the information, and I believe with E-Trade, which is jointly launched by the leading e-wallet in Malaysia, TNG e-wallet, Afin Huang Investment Bank, one of Malaysia's reputable broker, you can easily begin your stock trading journey, even starting trading ETF. But even with that, I believe that some of you may still have some questions in your mind. For example, what if I lose money after investing in the stock or ETF? Or what if I don't know when is the good time to sell? And also, is now a good time to invest? So Puan Nani, to clear some of the doubts that some of the beginners may have, what would you say to someone who is new to begin and unsure or afraid to start investing?
Okay, I understand. So it's completely normal actually to feel very unsure, feel unsafe in losing money. So just remember this. Not investing is often riskier in the long run. Okay, so because your money loses value over time due to inflation, so you are not alone. There are tools, guides, and also guides to build your confidence. For you to learn, there are lots of reading or references that you can actually refer to. For example, like at BURSA, so you can actually refer to our BURSA Malaysia ETF page. Okay, so they have lots of information about ETF, and you can also go to my BURSA. It's also on our website. There's a BURSA Digital Research where you can find the research on ETF, and also BURSA ETF page. You can find various research reports for you actually to understand further, or for you to choose the most suitable ETF for you. And also, you can also go to the knowledge section of my BURSA, filter ETF topics. So for that, you can actually, for example, you want to know more about Wakaf ETF, you can learn about Wakaf ETF on that knowledge section. And furthermore, you can also join any of our seminars and also webinars organized by BURSA Academy, which is actually BURSA Malaysia. So you can actually learn a lot about ETF or about stocks or about anything about Bursa products. So you can actually build confidence from there. So you don't need to be an expert or investment expert to do or to invest in ETF. So ETF basically will do the heavy lifting for you, and your job is just to be consistent investing and be patient. So remember I mentioned earlier, time is the greatest advantage. So the earlier you start, the more time your money has actually to grow. Even your small contribution add up through compounding. So I think that's very important for you to know as a starter.
Okay, thank you, Puan Nani. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our webinar session, and we will also take a few questions that we have received from our audience as well. So, Puan Nani, are you ready for the question? Okay, so the first question that we actually received is, since Wakaf is a form of donation, is it tax deductible?
Yes, I mentioned earlier. Okay, so since it's Wakaf is part of donation, so when it comes to tax deduction, you will receive that tax incentive. As I mentioned earlier, when you go and do your declaration for your income tax, there's a portion there. It's together with our other charities. So you can declare how much money actually you contribute to Wakaf. So you normally receive your what do you call that, the dividend, right? Okay, so the dividend, how much it goes to Wakaf, actually you can declare that as for tax deduction.
Okay, thank you. So I hope that answers your question. And the next question that we have is, can I stop my investment or withdraw it anytime? Is there a lock-in period when investing in ETF?
There's no lock-in period. Okay, so you can actually withdraw your investment anytime. So you just go to your stockbroker, consult with a remiser or dealer to sell your ETF. Yeah, it's as easy as that. So you can get money within T+2.
Okay. Thank you, Puan Nani. I think we still have time for one last question for today, which is what are the real-life charitable or social initiatives that have been supported through Wakaf? Could you give us some insights on this?
Okay, this is the real-life example. I went to a place. Actually, I went to Johor and Terengganu. I saw this is actually a dialysis center in Terengganu. Okay, it's not only Muslim inside the dialysis center. A few of them, such as one Chinese lady, one Chinese man, and an Indian lady using the facility of Wakaf. Actually, a dialysis center. So the dialysis center is not only open for the needy and the poor. So they are also open for those actually who need the facility. Yeah? So they can just go to that dialysis center, register, get the appointment, and they can use the dialysis center. It's actually, because healthcare equipment is very, very expensive. Healthcare treatment is very expensive. So this is where Wakaf comes in, and this is where you help the community through Wakaf. Yeah, so it is very indirectly, not a normal charity. So it's just through Wakaf, anybody can use or benefit from the Wakaf through this kind of healthcare facilities. For example, dialysis center, like in Johor, there are lots of mobile clinics around there where actually the public can use the facility. Yeah. So this is actually very good. So we actually need less dependent on the government actually to provide the budget healthcare, for example. So this can be supported by those who actually contribute through Wakaf. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much for your sharing, Puan Nani. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our session, but hopefully the start of your investment journey. So today we actually learned that investing doesn't have to be very complex or scary, especially when we are just getting started with the tools, especially like ETF, Wakaf ETF and E-Trade. And the best part, you can start investing directly just from your e-wallet. And with the My BURSA portal, you may also get a lot of different information and also new knowledge about investing in stocks or ETF. So it is easy, affordable and beginner friendly. So take your first step today and try it out. And last but not least, thank you so much once again, Puan Nani, for being here with us today. And thank you all of you who joined us today in this webinar session. jointly brought to you by TNG Digital, Apin Huang Investment Bank, and BURSA Malaysia. We hope that you walk away with a feeling little more confident and a little more curious, but ready to take the first step in your investment journey. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us, and we wish you all the best in your investment journey. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yay!